So this is where the chargers are. It's on the third car park up at the shops at Dartington. So I was just at Totnes beforehand. They've got very good shops there in terms of health shops and whatnot. So I picked myself up some reishi just to help with the allergies from the pollution and everything, and keep my sinuses in check. Now, the thing that I love about Totnes as well is that they also have their own natural spring water, so I don't have to worry about bottled water. I can take it straight out of a fresh source. So you just got to put your registration in over there. You get an hour's free and up to 2 hours for only £1. The price is cheap if I wanted to stay a full day here and just relax. So I've just been charging up in the sun down here for a couple of hours. I haven't got the solar panel set at the perfect angle, so let's see how the unit is doing. So I've been running for 3 hours and I have gained 369 watt hours, nearly 370. Now, considering the car will do 233 watt hours per mile with these hill climbs and everything, I've got at least a mile and let's see, about a mile and a half. Yeah, I reckon about that. I reckon I've gained about a mile and a half just from 3 hours charge. Now, it may not be a lot, but when you're relaxing out here by the sea, I mean, excuse the noise of combustion cars, but when you're relaxing out here, there's a nature reserve in the back here too, so you've got the balance of sea plants and you've got the balance of inland plants as well. I've foraged some nice things to make some food out of. But 1.5 miles, 3 hours charging, so let's say I could charge for another 6 hours, so that's without the perfect angle on these solar panels and completely clean, I can gain about 3 to 4 miles a day, which isn't too bad. And I say, once I put it, if I did make an effort to put it at the right angle, I could gain about 5 to 6 miles if I'm lucky. I'm just charging up back at Dartington while I've been away down by Torcross for the whole weekend. I've been using the solar power and I've been doing some testing to see just how much generation I've got, and so there's the unit there that's still running, 833 watt hours today. Now, what I've worked out is that 255 watt hours, roughly that equates to 0.1 volt on the voltage meter at the front. So it's just being charged up off the mains right now, but per 0.1 of a volt is roughly 255 watt hours. So just under 0.1 of a volt is 1 mile. So I've roughly gained about 4 to 5 miles, I think, from charging just off the sun. And but the thing that I've been quite curious about is how does it extend my miles per volt rating, because when I'm going up these hills around Devon, my miles per volt towing the trailer ranges from between 8.5 up to 10 if I'm really driving well. Now, with this extra small bit of charge, you wouldn't realise it, but I've actually gained another mile per volt, or another couple of miles per volt, and I've actually pushed it up to 12 miles per volt, which means if I was able to run the other half of the battery down and do the whole and discharge it completely, I reckon I would have a range of around 130 to 140 miles with the solar power aiding the journey, which is quite remarkable considering I'm towing the trailer with me. When I first set off, I think it was the way I was driving, but I was only able to achieve less than 100 miles on the road. But now I've managed to tweak it to the point that I'm actually producing at least, probably around 120 miles off a single charge. So it is kind of, majority of it is how you're driving. So once I'm done here, I've just got to find somewhere to park up for the night. But that's just a quick update in relation to the solar charging. Something else to mention is that, as you see here, I'm already at 835 watt hours. Now this is over 11 hours of charging from early morning, from early morning right up to this point, and it will keep generating electricity if I'm in the open sun right up until maybe 8 or 9. So I have generated approximately, I reckon I'd say about 2 kilowatts over the past couple of days. I've been recording as much as possible, so I've at least generated about 1.8 kilowatts. Now if I've generated 2 kilowatts, that's not too bad, considering I only have a 400 watt panel on the top, and that 800 and something watt hours is me driving through shady trees, through shaded roads, and also cloudy. It's not been perfectly clear today, as you can see. There are clouds in the sky. So on a perfectly clear day, hazard a guess that if I was starting in one place and staying there all day, there'd be well over a kilowatt, possibly even the 2 kilowatts. I mean, over that time I've probably generated 40 to 50 amp hours of battery capacity, of battery charge. So it's I mean, on my electric tricycle last year, I was actually fully charging the battery in less than a day. So that's what this solar power was originally equipped for. So if I was to be able to have maybe another 8 panels on this should give me, if I was able to have them folding down the sides and open them up when I'm charging, I could easily gain about 10 to 12 miles in a day.
Show you I'm here, if not near at hand.
Just a short update. I stopped at B Sands today, a really quiet, beautiful location by the beach. Now my nearest charger is actually, my nearest public charger is Dartington, and that is a 20-mile journey over in somewhere in that direction, up a lot of steep hills. So seeing as I'm staying in this area for a couple of days, I thought, okay, there's no chargers, tested destinations are off the maps, because I rang the closest one to me, and they said they don't offer anything for non-customers. So this is just something that we don't do often. I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get, essentially. So I stopped at the Cricket Inn down at B Sands and just asked the manager if it was okay to grab a charge out the plug socket, and so here I am. So I don't always need to be near a public charger. There is always a way around things, and because my car's so small and charges relatively quickly on a 13 amp, I can quite happily sit here for a couple of hours and have enough juice to kind of stay around the area. So I've also been experiencing some other things with this car. I've driven down my worst roads yet, like very, very, very steep gradients that, I mean, worse than the gradients I've already tackled, because they were terrible roads with bad surfacing, which means that it was even more effort to actually push me up the hill, rather. And so if I had to stop on any of those hills, they're so narrow, there's no turning places. And a friend that I made locally, I went to pull into their driveway last night, and it's like a steep gradient like that, but then a ton of potholes, and gravel, so if I don't get a running start, there's no way I'm getting up into there. So the thing is, the G-WIZ actually made it, just about, but it made it, and so that's good news. And these Devonshire roads are really testing the ability to drive. Now my only concern also is getting out of B Sands, because there is a steep hill there, a steep hill and no passing places on some of it. So that's going to be the next challenge today, to see if I can get out of here. But it's not a bad place to be stranded anyway. Now I have to say, it also feels good that I'm no longer contributing to the petrol emissions and diesel emissions on the road. Even down these country lanes, or say around Kingsbridge, or even in Totnes, you've got a lovely area, but the cars just tend to ruin it for me. Since being on electric and being out in the country air or in the sea air, you really notice the stench of diesel fumes or petrol fumes, or just general pollution whenever you enter certain areas. And because we live around it every day, we become desensitized we become very desensitized to the impacts that it has on our body, on our senses, and just having the detox from it has really opened my eyes to the true situation that we're in. Now the next step really, just following on from Fully Charged Live, they were talking about the tyre pollution. There is actually, it's scary to think, but tyre pollution is actually a lot worse than our emissions. Because there's no regulations on tyres and what pollutants they can and can't put in them. So that is the next step, is trying to produce pollution-free tyres. Now I believe they used to be relatively pollution-free in the beginning. When tyres used to be white, it was almost just pure rubber, but they weren't very durable. So there are technologies being embraced now that are following in the footsteps of going green with the electric. If we can tackle tyre pollution, then the roads will virtually be, they'll be very clean. So what we don't actually realise is that the way that how our tyres wear over, like, say 20,000 miles, all of that comes down into like a fine dust, something that is, some of it's even smaller, very, very, very tiny particles, and those can easily be inhaled. They can enter systems in other places. They get washed. A lot of the it was also talked about on Fully Charged, where a lot of the plastic, or rather rubber or oil pollution that's going into the seas, a large percentage of it is tyre dust. Essentially, it's getting flushed down the drains and running straight out to sea. So the plastic situation in our oceans is heightened by the tyre dust, and we just don't realise how much is on the road. If you think about how many cars are driving past you every day in a busy area, and all that tyre dust that's accumulating on the surface of the road, and you're breathing that in as you're walking up the street, it's just, when you think about it on that microscopic level, and what it's, that you're inhaling that toxic dust, because we already know that tyres are, they're very bad for the environment. Like, it's ill-advised to, for example, make tyre plant pots, or just kind of burning tyres. They're very dangerous, and but we've completely overlooked the situation with what happens to the wear of the tread. So I think that once we finally rectify this, the pollution on the roads will be a lot better. Electric cars and clean tyres, clean durable tyres. The technology's there. We just have to actually find a way to create a market for it, because it's one of the tyres are one of the biggest money makers in the automotive industry, and that's why they're making those budget tyres that wear down quicker, that you have to replace sooner. So if anything, until the situation is resolved, the best thing that you could possibly do if you do a lot of miles is to get the more expensive but the tyres that last the longest. There's less particulate matter over the time of their life coming off. If you can do, say, 50 to 100,000 miles before the tyre wears down, that's a whole lot less particulate that you are spreading into the atmosphere. So yeah, just a little bit of food for thought while I'm standing here and just enjoying the scenery and the fresh sea air.